And welcome to another episode of the Cover Zero podcast, the show where I cover the least in the best way possible. I'm your host, Jason Wells. Today is Friday, February 7th. We are 2 days away from Super Bowl 59, and this is the Super Bowl show. If you haven't noticed, I have my Super Bowl 48 Seattle Seahawks champions shirt. I've got my Super Bowl 56 hat, which was the Bengals and Rams when Matt Stafford won. It's the Super Bowl episode. We have a lot to talk about, and it's mainly just going to be the matchup, but obviously we have NFL Weekly Update too, and there's still a lot happening around the NFL in terms of hirings and whatnot, and so big episode. This is going to be a longer one. I don't know how long because, again, we just started this. I'm assuming it's going to be around an hour and a half. Maybe. I think that would be good if I kept it to under an hour and a half. So we will see how this goes. So I'm going to start off NFL Weekly Update. Going to go over some fun prop bets that I like. Then we're going to get into the actual game preview, and how I'm going to do it is I'm basically going to go position by position. Take that back. Position group by position group. Talk about all these guys, and then eventually give my final prediction of the game. I mean, I think most people know where I'm leaning, but I got a fun one. So, yeah, this is the Super Bowl episode. This is the last 2-time-a-week episode until next season starts, going back to 1 week, but let's just get into it because it will be a long one. So, starting off with the NFL Weekly Update. Obviously, the big news out of Super Bowl Media Week was the Luka Doncic trade. The NBA has taken over this week. I'll give them a lot of credit. There has not been a lot of hype for the Super Bowl, but the thing that gave the NBA or the NFL media a little bit of pullback was Myles Garrett has requested a trade from the Cleveland Browns. This was kind of floated out there towards the end of last season, I think around Christmas time, where he's like, yeah, if he doesn't like the direction of where the team's going, then he wants out. And are we shocked that he wants out? No, absolutely not. So before we talk about what this means for the Cleveland Browns, let's talk about who could potentially want Myles Garrett. And the real answer to that is every single team in the league. Myles Garrett's contract right now, at least cap hit wise, he has 2 years left on his deal, both around $20 million in cap hit. And then obviously he wants a big extension. He's going to get a big extension from whoever pays him. But the teams that make the most sense, in my opinion, and he wants to go to a playoff contender. So this is teams like the Bills, who desperately need a Tier 1 pass rusher. The Lions could pair him up with Aiden Hutchinson, forming one of the best pass rush duos this league has ever seen, and I don't think that's hyperbole. The Commanders have a ton of money, and they might be thinking of doing it. And then some lesser teams, I've seen the Niners get floated out there. That would be a crazy one, but if they truly think this is their last year of their window before they have to pay Brock Purdy, makes a lot of sense. The Falcons just need a pass rusher in general. They could do it. A team like the Cardinals also need a pass rusher badly. They could do it. And then the teams that aren't really in contention, I've seen the Patriots get floated around. They got the most money. They have the higher end draft picks. It all depends. And Myles Garrett, he's been going through Media Row and he's been talking to a bunch of people. It's like, yeah, I like the fit there. Oh, I also like the fit at this team, where he's essentially talking like he's a free agent right now. He's not. He definitely is not. And the Browns don't want to trade him. They've flat out said that, no, we are not going to trade him. But I think Myles Garrett will eventually force their hand. And that doesn't mean that he's going to go somewhere that he wants, to a potential playoff team. So I think that there is a chance that he could get traded to a team like the Patriots, who are definitely more than a few years away from being contenders again. But everyone should be in on Myles Garrett. Me personally, my favorite fit would be the Lions, just because, again, getting to see Myles Garrett, Aiden Hutchinson off the edges, and don't forget about Aleem McNeil and DJ Reader. That would be one of the best defensive lines in the NFL ever. And again, might be overhyping it. I don't think I am. I think that literally would be one of the best defensive lines the league has ever seen. So, yeah. Lots of teams obviously want Myles Garrett. What it will cost. Some people were going like, oh, it's going to be multiple first. I think the most realistic thing, it'll be a first. It'll be a day 2 pick. And it'll probably be another day 2 pick or a player. I think that's probably the likely outcome. Again, we'll see. All of these teams have varying players and picks to work with. So we'll break that trade down when it actually happens, if it does happen. What this means for the Browns, though, and all of the Browns' woes and troubles, we can really go back to them making that trade with the nasty man for Deshaun Watson and just absolutely tanking their franchise. Now, with the picks that were made, that the Browns traded away, one was Jalen Carter, and this isn't what the Texans ended up doing with those picks. This is who was picked at the spot the Browns were supposed to. Jalen Carter was one of them. In 2023, oh, I can't believe I'm forgetting, and I'm going to have to look it up because I even tweeted it, but I'm forgetting, which is bad on me, so give me a little time. I thought I was going to remember off the top of my head. I remember 2024. Obviously, that was not that long ago. Yes, here we go. So, this Browns trade, you look back on it. So, 2022, Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter is an obvious stud, potential future defensive player of the year candidate, anyways. 2023, Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs, one of the best offensive players in the NFL. Now, would the Browns have picked him? Probably not. But there was a guy named Christian Gonzalez who was also just hanging around in that spot, too. So that could have been an option. And then in 2024, Brian Thomas Jr. was right there where the Browns wanted to pick. This Browns trade has just, again, it set the franchise back a decade where who knows if Baker would have become the Baker he has since been in Tampa if he was still in Cleveland. I have no idea. But it's worth hypothetically, of course, it would have been better for the Browns to stick with Baker, hope he figures it out, and he becomes the guy he's been in Tampa since then. They keep all these draft picks, they bolster his team, because that Browns roster was really, really good these last few years. And if it wasn't for the nasty man playing quarterback for them and being utterly terrible, this Browns team would have been contending for something anyways. Obviously, the AFC, the path to get to the Super Bowl, it's a gauntlet. But if Baker would have been that QB, if they still would have had Amari Cooper, if they would have added, maybe 3 of them. Could you imagine Jalen Carter and Myles Garrett playing on that same defensive line? Could you imagine if they added another playmaker like Jahmyr Gibbs to go along Nick Chubb, who they've just wasted their entire prime, and then adding, again, Brian Thomas Jr. and Amari Cooper working in the same offense together? That sounds incredible. The Browns had the blueprint out in front of them, and they threw it all away for a guy who has absolutely ruined their franchise and is going to continue to do that for the next couple years. The Browns suck. The Browns deserve everything that has happened. It's unfortunate. We can keep going because this is going to be a long episode, though. Speaking of people in the trade market, Cooper Kupp didn't request a trade, but the Rams essentially told him, it's like, we're going to try to trade you this season. We don't want you. I mean, they probably didn't say we don't want you on the team anymore, but the way Cooper Kupp's cap hit has been and the injuries and the whatever, they have Puka Nacua, they can show Cooper Kupp the door just a little bit anyways, and the market will be there. Teams like the Patriots, need a wide receiver. The Broncos definitely need a wide receiver. The Steelers, the list goes on and on. Lots of wide receiver needy teams across the league right now, and Cooper Kupp should go for a round 3 pick. Sounds kind of enticing for a guy like Cooper Kupp, but that 2021 season that he had when he was a Triple Crown winner, Offensive Player of the Year, was he Offensive Player of the Year? Did Derrick Henry also have a crazy year that year? I'm trying to remember. I'm not going to look it up on my phone because that ruins the flow of the show. But that year by Cooper Kupp, and everyone knows that year that we're talking about, was absolutely incredible. But since then, it has been up and down with injuries, which obviously aren't his fault inherently. But yeah, the Cooper Kupp era in LA could be done at this point. It is a changing of the guard. They got some young guys coming in. Matt Stafford, again, he's got 1 or 2 more years left, but Les Snead, Sean McVay, they're always looking to further bolster their roster, and I think getting another asset for Cooper Kupp, it's kind of the right thing to do at this point. Next note up here, we can get into the coaching talk. I believe, starting off with Chip Kelly back in the NFL as the Raiders offensive coordinator. Obviously, if you're not familiar with Chip Kelly, so he was the Ohio State offensive coordinator this year. Obviously did a very good job. They won the national championship, something that Chip Kelly was never able to do when he was at Oregon, and he ran the up-tempo, like they're going to the line immediately. What Chip Kelly was doing in like the early 10s, I guess late 2000s as well. Is it called aughts? I think it's called aughts. Either way, was like things that college coaches like weren't really doing, and he was dominating. And then all of a sudden, the Eagles be like, "We want you to be our next head coach," and he had a good couple years. And then all of a sudden, teams figured out how to match the up tempo that he was doing, and that was that. He leaves Philly a little scorned. I mean, he traded some of their like franchise legends away, LaShawn McCoy, Deshaun Jackson. Trade away LaShawn McCoy for Kiko Alonso. That's a bit of a funny one looking back on that. But then becomes the Niners head coach. He gets fired, makes his way back to college, and then works his way back up. He was UCLA's head coach, and then he's like, I don't want this job anymore. Goes to Ohio State, did a terrific job. Now he's back in the NFL. And obviously, the Raiders aren't going to be running this up-tempo gimmick type thing that he was doing, and he hasn't been doing that for a few years now. But I like the hire. I think that Chip Kelly, the head coach, was not good, and I think that he probably realizes that too, where too much things on his plate, where if he can just solely focus on the offense, I like it. I like the hires that they've made so far. I think, again, the Raiders roster in general isn't pretty, but they're doing some fun things that should get Raiders fans excited anyways, and I think that's all we can really say about that. The Texans hire Nick Caley as their offensive coordinator. Who is Nick Caley? He was the Rams tight end coach and pass game coordinator. Obviously, he was a highly sought after candidate too. The Jets looked at him for offensive coordinator. The Patriots looked at him for offensive coordinator. He eventually falls on the Texans. Easy to see why when you got C.J. Stroud, DeMeco Ryans as that head coach. That division just stinks. Got Nico Collins. Like, again, the Texans job, the Texans offensive coordinator job specifically, is a nice job anyways. But Nick Caley comes from that Sean McVay tree. We all see how that Sean McVay tree has panned out in the NFL. Pretty damn good. So it'll suck for DeMeco if they do this. The Texans have an incredible season, and then someone poaches Nick Caley right away, which probably seems to be the most likely thing to happen in my opinion, but Texans land a good one, supposedly. We have no idea, really. Next offensive coordinator hire is Grant Udinsky. Is the new Jags offensive coordinator. Now, who is that? He is a 29-year-old who was the assistant offensive coordinator and assistant quarterbacks coach for the Vikings. And when this move happened, a lot of Vikings fans on Twitter were like, damn, this sucks. I thought that like we were going to get him for another couple of years, blah, blah, blah. He seems like the next like boy genius in the NFL, if you want to give out that title. And now he gets to go from Kevin O'Connell to Liam Cohen, who I also think are both part of that Sean McVay tree. I know that, they definitely both are. So Udinsky already familiar kind of what Cohen runs. And again, 29 years old. He's 1 year older, at least in like birth year than me. He's 2 years older than me because I got a late birthday. But 29 years old, offense coordinator of an NFL team. Absolutely crazy. Interested to see how that pans out for him. And the other coordinator hire that they made, Anthony Campanell, whatever, is the new Jags defense coordinator. He was the Packers linebackers coach. Was an interim defense coordinator in Miami. He was in Miami for a bit. Then he went over to Green Bay. And yeah, Green Bay's defense has looked pretty damn good these last couple years. Not like elite units, but like they've done the job. Everyone seems to like that hire. Again, we'll see how that pans out. But the coaching staff, the main pieces of the Jags coaching staff are there right now. Tanner Engstrand is the Jets' new offense coordinator. He was the Lions' passing game coordinator for them the last few seasons, so obviously this role makes sense. He's following Aaron Glenn, and he can maybe be his new Ben Johnson. I guess we'll see how that goes, but I think high expectations for Engstrand, but I think it's a little telling that Dan Campbell didn't give him the Lions offense coordinator job. I don't know why he didn't. I'm not going to speculate on that, but it's just a little interesting. A little interesting. I don't know. Another offense coordinator hire. Clayton Adams is the Cowboys' new offense coordinator. So obviously they got Brian Schottenheimer, who will be calling the plays as their like offensive head coach. And Clayton Adams was the Cardinals' offensive line coach and run game coordinator, I believe. And that run game was very, very good, despite, again, not a great offensive line. And, like, James Conner is good. We know this, but, like, he's not great. So, now he's one of the Cowboys who also don't have a great O-line, but they got some young pieces anyways, and that the Cowboys like. And if they can get a running back, maybe Ashton Jeanty falls there. I think that this Cowboys offense could get creative enough where maybe it makes some noise. Again, I'm not going to be high on the Cowboys. We'll see what they do in the offseason and all that stuff, but that is who the Cowboys bring in. Josh Grizzard replaces Liam Cohen as offense coordinator for the Bucks. I think he was their passing game coordinator, so now, again, their third offense coordinator in 3 seasons. The players seem to like Grizzard. Again, I have no idea. We'll see. I find it usually when it's like, offense coordinator gets poached and then they replace from within, that usually that next guy is pretty good. And Liam Cohen was obviously very good. He got a head coaching job the next season. But when you go like, third in line, especially in 3 years to be the replacement guy, then I'm worrying like a little bit. Again, we'll see how it works out. I have no idea because, again, coordinator hires are tough to really analyze because they haven't done it before. Is that it? And then some lesser hires here, but notable names anyways. David Shaw becomes the Lions' new pass game coordinator after Engstrand left. If you don't know who David Shaw is, he was the Stanford head coach for over a decade, took over from Jim Harbaugh there, coached Andrew Luck, coached Christian McCaffrey. Again, very good college coach. Was like not executive for the Broncos, but he was with like the Broncos last year in like a limited capacity, not a coaching capacity, but now he goes with the Lions, so interesting hire there. And then another interesting hire that I like is the Bears hire Eric Bieniemy to be their running backs coach. I think that's where Bieniemy started with the Chiefs, was as the running backs coach, and obviously Bieniemy rubs a lot of people in NFL circles the wrong way, but this is just another hire to me. And if you listen to last Friday's show, I brought up the same thing where they've now brought in, so Eric Bieniemy, running game coach, Press Taylor, pass game coordinator, and I'm Declan Doyle as their offense coordinator, who's 28 years old. They bring in these 3 guys, and obviously we'll see with Declan Doyle. But this all seems like guys who won't get poached away from Ben Johnson's staff. And if they do, it seems like Ben Johnson has the guys in-house that he wants to eventually replace, and hopefully he doesn't have to do this for another few years. But like, if Ben Johnson can keep those 3 guys on his staff for the next 3 seasons, that it's again really, really promising. Someone will probably poach the other boy genius Declan Doyle there, but I like these hires for the Bears. I like that they're bringing in people that have had very, very high success and were very sought after people in the NFL at one time and another, and are bringing them in as like the band of like misfit characters who come in and be like, no one wants them anymore. And Ben Johnson does. The Bears do. So interested to see how that staff plays out, but I like this. The Jags have named former Jaguar Tony Baselli their executive VP of football operations. Baselli was the team's first ever draft choice back in the 90s there. Was also the first choice of the Texans in the expansion draft, which is just interesting that he can be the first choice for two separate teams, two separate expansion teams. Interesting anyways. Baselli, a Hall of Fame left tackle. No experience in the front office, and now he's the like VP of football ops, so we'll see how that works. Again, he's obviously been around football a lot. He's been around the Jags a ton, but like the fact that he has no other front office experience is not concerning. It's just interesting to me anyways. Those are all the hirings anyways. Just a couple more notes here. Bears owner Virginia McCaskey passes away at 102 years old. The daughter of George Halas, the Bears founder. I mean, she was the owner for that Bears 85 win. Can't really say much else about her other than she was just a nice old lady who unfortunately gave her sons the team, and they're not very good at what they do. But the Bears, I don't know. She never saw a 4,000-yard passer in her entire life, but living to 102 years old, good for her. Rest in peace, I guess. I don't know. Had to bring it up because she's an owner, and again, long storied history of the NFL and yada, yada, yada. A little bit of college news, but Ron Rivera is going to be the GM of the Cal football program. Obviously, college football is kind of turning into like a farm. I mean, it's always been a farm league for the NFL, but like now it's looking more like the NFL with how NIL is being used. And Andrew Luck is in this role with Stafford. I forget the name of the guy in North Carolina. That's not Bill Belichick, but it's the other stupid guy who he brought along who didn't have a good NFL past, but he's like their de facto GM kind of. So this is like a new role that is happening, and I'm interested to see how Ron Rivera does. I don't know. Again, it's Ron Rivera, longtime NFL coach. Got to talk about it. And player. Played for that 85 Bears too. There's a connection. Next note up, the NFL ends racism. Shout out to the NFL, obviously taking, if you haven't noticed, but like end racism has been in like the back of the end zones for the last 4 years, I guess. And obviously they're taken away. They ended it. So shout out to the NFL. And last note up here, the NFL will be playing a game in Australia in 2026. I don't envy the teams that have to make that travel. That is a brutal travel day, and to be 12 hours ahead and then to come back, like, because they'll probably do it like they did with the Brazil one, where it'll be an earlier game. It'll be the first game of the year, probably one of the first games of the year. But the time adjustment, like the jet lag, like from coming back is going to be unbelievable. So reminder to myself in 2 years of whoever plays in this game to bet against them the very next week, unless they have buys, obviously, because that jet lag is going to be absolutely crazy. It'll be weird because I don't know when that game's going to be played either, because obviously it's like a 12-hour difference or whatever it actually is. Might be 14. But again, because most of the viewership is in North America. So does that mean that they're going to be playing the game at like 10 in the morning or something like that to make it able so people, I don't know. Either way, the NFL can figure that out. Let's get into some NFL talk. We are at the 24-minute mark right now. I think I'm going to do it. I don't think I'll spend an hour, but we'll see. So let's start off with a few fun prop bets that I found. Not a ton of like good ones that I liked, and these are like the weird, obscure ones, not like player props and lines. I got a bunch of those, but these are like the more niche ones that we kind of bet on every year. Starting off, tails never fails. It does, obviously, it's a coin flip, so, but I'm betting tails on the coin toss. I saw someone on Twitter who was trying to rationalize where, oh, it's actually more likely it's going to be heads because if you've looked at the last 50 years of Super Bowls or whatever her mark was, heads has been flipped more of the time. And people were like, that's really stupid. It's a 50-50 coin flip regardless of past results. And she doubled down instead of being like, I know, it's just a fun trend. No, she doubled down on it, that the coin toss was not in fact 50-50, but tails never fails. Going with tails. And I got, so on FanDuel, I think it's like, minus 103 or minus 115, so you don't get your money back. On DraftKings, it was even money, like it was plus 100, so take those odds. Don't give the other sports books like that, like those cents, because all of those cents add up. In terms of Gatorade color, I will be going with yellow at plus 250. If you think the Chiefs are going to win, you might want to bet purple. I think purple is the favorite right now because that's been the last 2 years of Super Bowl baths. That's a weird one, but the color of Gatorade poured on Andy Reid was purple the last 2 years, but I'm going with yellow, going a little different. Hasn't been yellow in a while, so going with yellow. Next one I have here is with Next Gen Stats, Hollywood Brown to be the fastest ball carrier recorded at plus 1260. So obviously Hollywood Brown is not the fastest guy on the field. That's Xavier Worthy. We all know Xavier Worthy is the fastest, but there's a chance. Again, there is a slim chance where Worthy doesn't get the long touchdown, the breakaway, like whatever, where I think Hollywood is more of their downfield vertical threat, where Worthy is working more in like the Rashee Rice role at the moment. But Hollywood Brown, really, really fast. Was a 4.3 guy. That was obviously a while ago. He's still really fast. I believe that he can be the fastest ball carrier in the game, and at plus 1260, I like those odds. Next bet is, will there be an octopus? And yes is plus 1300. If you don't know what an octopus is, it is scoring a touchdown and then being the recipient of the 2-point conversion as well. I think it's a fun one. I think there's a decent chance that with how teams are going for it on fourth down and how successful both of these teams are on fourth down, that we could see some 2-point conversion tries in this one. So yes, a plus 1300. Next one up is actually one of like my favorite bets of the Super Bowl is Kareem Hunt and Saquon Barkley to have 10 plus yards in every quarter. That's plus 2,000. Obviously, I think Saquon is a lock for that. I don't think we really need to talk about that. Kareem Hunt, it'll be interesting, obviously. Isaiah Pacheco's there as well, but Hunt has been their lead back for the playoffs, and 10 yards isn't a ton. 10 yards every quarter, I think we can do it. That's at plus 2,000. And then finally, I have an unlisted prop, one that isn't on any sports books. It is Carson Wentz Super Bowl MVP. Now, obviously, a lot has to happen for this, but could you just imagine, just go into this hypothetical world with me, but in a world where Pat Mahomes in the first quarter goes down with an injury, and not like usual where it's like, he's back, he's fine, he ends up winning the game. No, he's actually hurt this time, and in comes former Eagles quarterback Carson Wentz to lead them in the game. He gets his redemption story. He couldn't be the guy to lead the Eagles to their first Super Bowl in 2017, but he can be the guy to beat the Eagles for the three-peat. And that's the thing. I think like the longest odds that they give right now are like plus 50,000. So I would say Carson Wentz Super Bowl MVP is at plus 100,000 right now. Obviously, you cannot bet that, but that would just be incredible if you were able to bet Carson Wentz Super Bowl MVP, because if something were to happen to Mahomes, it's just a good story. It's a good story, but let's get into this game now. And before we get into the positions and all the people that will be playing in this game, I got some stats that we got to list off before we get into all the talk here. So, total Super Bowls won right now, AFC 29, NFC 29. There will be someone in the lead after this one. So that stat doesn't really tell us anything. But it's even in Super Bowls right now between both conferences. The AFC, though, is 12 for 20 of the last 20 Super Bowls. Point in Kansas City's favor slightly. In Super Bowl rematches, the team that won the first matchup is 6-0. Unfortunate for the Eagles, but 2-0 Kansas City. One thing for the Eagles, though, is the team with the worst season record is 14-3 in the last 19 Super Bowls. Obviously, there's been a couple ties for records, so that's why it's 14-3 in the last 19. But that's one for the Eagles, at least. So 2-1 right now. Another one for the Eagles. The Eagles are 5-0 on artificial turf this season. They're playing in the Superdome in New Orleans, artificial turf. We're all tied up. But on the other end of that, Patrick Mahomes is 12-0 in his career in a dome, and it's the Superdome for a reason. 3-2 Chiefs. Vic Fangio is 0-8 against Pat Mahomes in his career. He is the Eagles defense coordinator. 4-2 Chiefs. Every time this century, one team has had to travel east to get to the Super Bowl, and the other team has to travel west. The team traveling west wins the game. The Eagles are the team traveling west. The Chiefs are traveling east. 4-3 for the Chiefs. This is an interesting one, and I don't know how to score this one. But the Eagles, if the Eagles lose, they have 666 wins and 666 losses in their team's franchise history. That's going back a long, long time, obviously. And I don't know if that's the Chiefs' devil magic, being like, haha, look at these 666 numbers on both of these for the Eagles, or if it's the Eagles counteracting them with their own devil magic. I guess we'll see. And that's the thing. If I'm not counting that one, it's 4-3 for the Chiefs in the weird, obscure stats. And I got one last thing just in terms of playoff experience. The Chiefs have 22 guys on their roster with multi-game Super Bowl experience going into this. The Eagles have 4. And those 4 for the Eagles are Brandon Graham, who will be playing in this one, Lane Johnson, Rick Lovato, whoever that is, I guess a special teamer, probably long snapper actually, and then kicker Jake Elliott, where the Chiefs on the other side, their entire 2022 draft class has never lost a playoff game so far. That's just how good the Chiefs have been recently, but those are the weird stats right now. It is crazy that Chiefs 2022 class has just not lost a playoff game. It's unbelievable, really, but... Oh, shit, I missed one. So it's definitely in the Chiefs' favor. Teams wearing white have won 16 of the last 20 Super Bowls. The Chiefs are wearing white, and the Chiefs have been 2 of those teams to have bucked that trend over the last 2 Super Bowls, but they're on the right side of the trend in this one, so very, very interesting to see how this goes. But okay, let's talk about this game, these matchups in general, and I am going to go position by position, talking about everyone who will be playing in this game, or at least all of the good players anyways. Obviously, they're all good players, they're NFL players, they're in the Super Bowl, but and we'll start off the most important position here. It is quarterbacks. Obviously, we know Patrick Mahomes is the better quarterback than Jalen Hurts. Simple enough. We can move on. No, we got to talk about it a little bit, but obviously we know what Pat Mahomes has done in these games, in his big moments. His teams just win, and people can blame the refs. It doesn't matter. The Chiefs are consistently in positions to win since he's been the quarterback, because he is a damn good fucking quarterback. And Jalen Hurts, I think Jalen Hurts is a good quarterback. That Super Bowl against the Chiefs 2 years ago was one of the better Super Bowl performances from a quarterback in a long, long time, and he will have to replicate that performance in hopefully a winning fashion this time for it to happen. Again, it'll be close. I think at the end of the day, this will be a close game, but obviously the Chiefs get the edge at quarterback. They got so much, again, both guys have great rosters, and that's why they're both in the Super Bowl, but the The one stat I found about the quarterbacks is so Jalen Hurts is one of the worst quarterbacks in the league when he gets pressured. Luckily for him, his offensive line is really good. But KC is sixth in pressure rates in quarters 2 to 4. And why it's quarters 2 to 4? Because Spags, those in-game adjustments, he will get after the quarterback. He will find creative ways to get to Jalen to expose this offensive line maybe just a little bit. And if you can pressure Jalen, those numbers look pretty damn good in because that's the thing. When I say he's one of the he is one of the worst QBs when pressured in the league. So if Spags can dial up some blitzes on him, that is the way to beat Jalen Hurts anyways. Talk about the running backs now. Obviously, Kareem Hunt, Isaiah Pacheco, Saquon Barkley. And really, we just have to talk about Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley, right now, he needs 30 yards for the most rush yards across an entire season. That's playoffs and obviously the regular season. He's trailing Terrell Davis right now. So he needs 30 yards. He's definitely going to get that. But the more impressive milestone record, whatever, to get is he's 150 yards away from being the Eagles' all-time leading postseason rusher. Yes, all-time leading postseason rusher. I think taking that away from Brian Westbrook in those early 2000s Phillies years. Very good running back, but the fact that Saquon in his first season with the Eagles is maybe going to be the Eagles' all-time leading playoff rusher at the end of it is absolutely nuts, but that's what Saquon is. He is just absolutely nuts. Unfortunately for Saquon, he has to go against this Chiefs defense, who in their last 18 playoff games, they have not allowed a single 100-yard rusher. So be very, very interesting to see how that matchup goes. The Chiefs obviously know that Saquon will be running the football. That will be their main focal point on offense. And if they can stop him, slow him down, which has been almost impossible to do this season, the Chiefs, again, they look pretty good. But we all know Saquon's awesome. Saquon, if the Eagles do win this, it'll be because of Saquon. Chiefs on the other side, the resurgence of Kareem Hunt has been unexplainable. Really, again, he looked like he was out of the league, comes back, and now he's the starting running back going into the Super Bowl for the Chiefs. It's a good story, and obviously they got Isaiah Pacheco there too. It's a good 1-2 punch. Kareem Hunt seems to be the leading guy, and again, the run game needs to be consistent. And when I say consistent, it needs to, again, get their 4 yards per carry. It just needs to be there. It doesn't have to be the main focal point of what the Chiefs do on offense, but it needs to be effective. I think effective is the right word I was looking for. I like Kareem Hunt to score in this game. I obviously like Saquon Barkley to get 2 touchdowns is plus 290. I think there's a very good chance he does that. Obviously, Vegas thinks so too. Kareem Hunt is the guy. Again, I'll be interested to see if a couple weeks maybe Pacheco is less injured than he was. I don't even know, but again, running back, it's a good matchup. I'm excited for them. Obviously, Saquon is the focal point, but we can move on, and I lumped in pass catchers as one unit instead of talking about Kelce and Goddard. Let's talk about pass catchers in general. So on the Chiefs, we've got Travis Kelce, DeAndre Hopkins, Xavier Worthy, Juju Smith-Schuster, Hollywood Brown, Justin Watson, Noah Gray, Sky Moore, Mecole Hardman. Not going to talk about those guys, obviously, but the Chiefs are deep at the position, which is really, really good. And usually the Chiefs have a guy, and I think last year it was just Justin Watson, who just started making plays out of nowhere because no one was focused on him. Where now the Chiefs still they're 5 guys deep, but all of them are effective players at this point. Where last year their number 1 receiver was Juju going into the year, and now Juju is their 5th option for pass catchers. Kelce, Worthy, Hopkins, Hollywood. Yeah, 5th. I'll go with 5th. Not even counting running backs, whatever. Where that's, again, it's a big benefit to have that many guys who you can trust to go make plays for you when they matter. And obviously the Chiefs trust their guys a ton. And this is DeAndre Hopkins first Super Bowl, and his odds right now are very low to basically do anything across the game, and makes sense. But I think that when they get into the red zone and people are focusing in on where's Travis Kelce, that's when Hopkins will get a one-on-one matchup. And again, going against that Philly secondary, who we'll talk about in a bit, is a very, very tough matchup. But Hopkins, a one-on-one with Pat Mahomes throwing the ball, I like those odds regardless of who's at corner. I think he's plus 550 right now to score a touchdown. So if you like that, but the Chiefs just have so many guys to work with. I think Xavier Worthy, again, he is excellent. Hollywood, since he's been back, has been very solid. Kelce is Kelce. They're good. The Eagles on the other side, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert. Those are their three guys. Outside of that, like, again, Jahan Dotson, sure, smelly. Johnny Wilson, who's like a rookie in 6'7". Grant Calcaterra. Either, like, again, they have three guys who they can trust, and everyone seems to be talking like this is going to be a big, big Dallas Goedert game. And you can see why, because the Chiefs linebackers and what they let up on defense is usually stuff towards the middle of the field, so that means Dallas Goedert should be the recipient or the benefactor of what the Chiefs do on defense. But in the 3 games that Devonta Smith has played the Chiefs, in every single game, he has 6+ catches. He has 99+ yards and usually 2+ explosive plays per game. So look out for Devonta Smith to make some moves. In this one, obviously, A.J. Brown is A.J. Brown, and they got to focus on him in general. But the pass catchers, I won't say it's even, but it's pretty close to even, because obviously, like, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, those are the 2 best guys. And then there's just so many guys on the Chiefs who are also just good. I'll give the Eagles the edge, though. But either way, we can keep going. Actually, one note here is Travis Kelce also looking to make some history here. He needs 3 catches to pass Jerry Rice in Super Bowl catches. That seems pretty damn likely. Again, passing Jerry Rice in any historical stat is an incredible accomplishment. So shout out to Travis Kelce for, again, potentially doing that. Seems likely that he's going to do that. Now let's talk about the big uglies. Let's talk about the trenches here. And when I say trenches, I'm doing offensive line and defensive line so I can talk about some of these matchups. So we'll start with Chiefs offensive line, Eagles defensive line. So this Chiefs offensive line right now, and they haven't said what matchup they're going to be doing, but I'm assuming it's what they've been doing for most of the playoffs, where that is Joe Thuney left tackle, Mike Caliendo at left guard, Creed Humphrey at center, Trey Smith at right tackle, and at right guard, and Jawan Taylor at right tackle. And there's that weak spot there. There's that weak spot of Nick Caliendo, a UDFA, and he will either be matched up against Jalen Carter, which seems very, very likely, Jordan Davis, who is also a freak, or Milton Williams, who is going to be a very highly paid free agent this year. That will be the person to attack on this Chiefs offensive line. And again, Jalen Carter is an absolute monster. We have known this, but right now he is tied for the second most defensive tackle pressures in a postseason right now. He's tied with Chris Jones at 20. He's 4 behind Aaron Donald for the overall record. We'll see if he can get 4, but I think that Jalen Carter will be going against Nick Caliendo for most of the game. That will be the way the Eagles can do their damage there. And again, it's like we all like the Chiefs' offensive line. We like their interior. Sliding Joe Thuney out to left tackle, it works because Joe Thuney is still an above-average left tackle. He's an elite guard, though, and it sucks that they don't have a left tackle that they feel comfortable enough putting it in. I thought that might have been DJ Humphries, but Humphries came back, was injured, and then that's whatever. They're fine with how the offensive line's looking right now. But like this Eagles, they got guys. Like they have, again, I talked about Carter, Davis, and Milton Williams, but on the edge, Josh Sweat, who is just, again, consistent, productive player. Nolan Smith has really emerged as one of their better pass rushers right now, former first round pick, another one of those Georgia Bulldogs on that defense. So, like, they have guys, and I think a big boost for them will be getting back Brandon Graham for this game. Now, I have no idea how much Brandon Graham will play, but just him being out there will be a big morale boost for this Eagles team. Again, he was part of that Super Bowl win in 2017-18 with them, was obviously there for the loss, and now he's back in his last game ever because he said that he plans on retiring. And again, don't know how active he's really going to be, but Lane Johnson in his Pardon My Take interview said that he was giving him the work and he got like a club on his hand because I forget, but it was like an arm injury, but he's got a club and he's going to use that club. And yeah, someone to look out for. Brandon Graham, obviously. Okay, now Chiefs defensive line versus the Eagles offensive line. Obviously, that Chiefs defensive line, Karlaftis, Omenihu, Michael Dana. Chris Jones is the guy. Chris Jones is the one who they will have to stop, and unfortunately for the Eagles, whose offensive line is very good across the board, but it is weaker on the interior than it is on the tackles, because Lane Johnson, future Hall of Famer, right tackle, first team All-Pro, and Jordan Mailata, again, should have been an All-Pro, lots of good tackle play, but he is a stud. But that interior of Cam Jurgens, Mekhi Beck, and Landon Dickerson, still very good, but just a little weaker. And Chris Jones, again, Chris Jones is the guy they have to focus on, where if they can, and I think that they will, but Johnson and Mailata should be able to hold up whoever is rushing off the edge on them. But keeping Chris Jones contained will be the goal for the Eagles, and having him not be a big disruptor. And that's a very, very tall task for any defense to ask. And just dealing with the Spags, blitzes in general. But again, Chris Jones constantly shows up in big games. He will again. He always does. I have a Super Bowl MVP ticket on him. I usually do. He should have won it that first Super Bowl they won, but I'm not mad about that. I'm definitely still a little bit salty about that, but no, it'll be, again, the games are won in the trenches, and the Chiefs they have to get pressure. They just have to get pressure in order to knock the Eagles off their game. It'll be, again, very, very interesting. We can quickly talk about the linebackers. Chiefs linebackers, Nick Bolton, Drew Tranquill, Leo Chenal. Solid. Like really, that's all. Like, they're solid players. They will have to have the best games of their life, hopefully, in order to stop Saquon and whatever he's doing. But they don't really have a stud. Like, Nick Bolton is a solid linebacker, but he's not a stud, otherworldly player, you can say. And the Eagles linebackers on the other side, it is Zach Bond, who was an All-Pro this year, who was playing absolutely unbelievable. And then Oren Burks, who had to come in as the backup in this playoffs, who he's been playing solid, but that is the weak point, and that is someone who the Chiefs will try to pick on with Kelsey, match him up whatever side Burks is on, maybe, I don't know, but Zach Bond is awesome. Oren Burks is fine. I feel bad for Nakobe Dean because he's not playing, but don't have to spend a ton on linebackers. They got to play their role. They got to do their jobs. They know that. Secondary on the other side. This is where the Chiefs defense is solid. I don't think it's a top 5 defense, one of the better defenses in the league, but it is damn good at what they do, and they don't make mistakes. They force you to make the mistakes, and their secondary is good. They got Brian Cook, Justin Reed at safety, and Trent McDuffie, Jalen Watson, and Shamari Connor. Obviously, McDuffie is the true stud there. They're missing L'Jarius Sneed, obviously, but what Trent McDuffie does and how he will be used, I'm very, very interested. I bet Trent McDuffie to be Super Bowl MVP before the AFC Championship game, so I have a big ticket on him, and he can be the potential like ace in the hole, someone who might be blitzing to get Jalen Hurts, or could be making some plays in the passing game or in the defensive game, whatever. And then this Eagles secondary. This Eagles secondary is one of the best. At safety, we got Reed Blankenship, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who's just a ball hawk, and then these corners that they have. Darius Slay, longtime vet. This is also his last NFL game. Very good career, and I'd like to see. I like Darius Slay. I like big play Slay, and maybe he can cap his career off with a Super Bowl. But then we got the rookies: Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean. Will the moment be too big for them? Will the inexperience catch up? I have no idea. This is something these guys have been working their entire lives for, is to get to this moment, and they are here. I'm sure that they will put their best foot forward. But that's kind of where, like, the Eagles' secondary and their corners are obviously great, but it's the matchups that will be interesting to see how the Eagles play it, because it won't just be man coverage on everyone, where they might. I don't know, but the Chiefs just have so many guys who can go make a play for them, where every time, like, any person who is on the field offensively for the Chiefs can be a weapon. This is including the offensive linemen, because I always like making that bet anyways, but Cooper DeJean will have to have a big game for them. He is their nickel corner. They use him kind of all over, but he will be the one tasked of stopping Travis Kelce a lot of the time, or stopping whoever that slot receiver is. He's also their punt returner, right? One of their kick return, I think so. Either way, and I also have a big ticket on him for Super Bowl MVP. I always bet a lot of long shots for Super Bowl MVPs outside of just like, because betting on Pat Mahomes plus 200 is just boring. But yeah, this Eagles secondary is really good, and they will have their hands full of whatever the Chiefs are doing. And we can quickly talk about special teams, because this is special teams again. Special teams, it's a third of the game. Man, sure. But the Eagles kicker, I don't really have to talk about the Chiefs special teams, because it's Harrison Butker, dickhead, but good kicker, and then Matt Araiza, good punter, sure. I don't even know who the Eagles punter is, but the reason why I want to talk about this is Jake Elliott. Jake Elliott, at one time, was one of the better kickers in the NFL. At this point right now, Jake Elliott is one of the worst kickers in the league. And when you rely on the kickers to make their extra points or just make field goals in general, having a guy who you can't really trust, that's tough, especially for the biggest game of the year. And yeah, I can't trust Jake Elliott to make a kick when it matters, and he will have to make kicks when it matters at the end of the day. It's, again, to say that the Super Bowl hinges on whatever Jake Elliott does definitely seems like a bit of a stretch, but I don't really... You can't make mistakes against the Chiefs, and if Jake Elliott goes out there and, chip shot 40-yard field goal and he shanks it, that might be the difference in the game. So, Jake Elliott, bring your A game, bring the prime Jake Elliott, and maybe you can walk off into the sunset too, because the Eagles are probably cutting you in the offseason, so you might as well retire. Do we have to talk about coaching? We all know that the Chiefs have the better coaching staff. Obviously, Andy Reid is Andy Reid. Nick Sirianni is Nick Sirianni. We can talk about the coordinators. I mean, Matt Nagy's a bum. We know this. Spags is a demon. We know this. Vic Fangio, a demon. We know this. Kellen Moore, future Saints head coach. Kind of a bum, but future head coach in waiting, I guess. But yeah, no, this game is... It's tough, and obviously everyone's like leaning the Chiefs. I did see one thing though out of, I think it was BetMGM, but out of like where their sports books are legal across the states, the only state that had the majority of the money line bets on the Chiefs was in Missouri, or also Kansas. So like those were the two, and everywhere else was Eagles. So don't get mad at Vegas when you complain about the refs and claim that it's rigged, when none of you are betting against the Eagles right now. And I'm picking the Chiefs, and little bit of a spoiler. I am picking the Chiefs because they're inevitable to a certain extent, but this game will be close. It will come down to the wire. I think this will be a really good game. These are two of the best football teams that the NFL put out there this year, and I'm very, very excited for the matchup. But my official prediction for the game, and you can get this at plus 700 on FanDuel, it is Eagles first half, Chiefs to win the game. And you can get that at plus 700 right now. That just seems like the most likely outcome. The Chiefs are going to have a great game. They'll come out and then there'll be some adjustments. They'll falter a little bit in the second half, and then the Chiefs will just eventually win because that's just what they do. I won't be surprised if the Eagles win, but I can't be surprised if the Chiefs do because it's just, again, it's what they've been doing. Yeah, that's the Super Bowl show. Not an hour and a half, under an hour. I'm impressed with myself. We talked about a lot. Is there anything I can really add to what's happening? Do I have some text message? Oh, I got a couple. More NBA news. Ooh, the Raptors got James Wiseman. Watch out for us. Yeah, yeah. That's it. That's the Super Bowl show. Yeah, next week we will be going back to one episode a week. It'll be NFL Weekly Update every single week. I can already tell you that Kellen Moore will accept the Saints head coaching job. Yeah, next week we will recap that game, do some NFL news, and then it is into draft season. It's into free agency, into the Combine. I love the Combine. I can't wait to talk about the Combine and some of these freak athletes that are going to be there. But what a great NFL season. Like, people throughout the year, the quarterback play is down across the league and it's rigged and blah, blah, blah. Every single year, despite the shitty team that I root for and how mismanaged they are, every single year I just love watching the NFL because there are so many good players and good storylines across the league. And I love doing this. I love doing this podcast because I get to talk about all these great moments that are happening and all of these great players. It's fun. I like being more involved in the sport that I love, even if it is just me talking to a camera in my living room with the few people who do listen. I thank you all. Like, again, thank you to everyone who does do that. See, I'm not very good at this still. I am. I'm decent at it. But I don't know. Yeah, another great season. We'll talk about one more game next week of who won the Super Bowl. I'm making the drive up to Montreal to go visit some friends, watch with them. I will have my Eagles jersey on for at least the first half, and then after that, it's coming off because that's what I'm cheering for. I'm cheering for Eagles first half, and then for the Chiefs to win the game. I obviously got a lot of other bets sprinkled here and there, but cheering for a three-peat. I want to see history. I want to see the Chiefs be the best dynasty in the history of the NFL, and people can forget me. Oh, the Patriots won 6 Super Bowls. They had a 10-year gap. There is a 10-year gap where you cannot consider that a part of the same dynasty. You just can't. They lost to Jake Plummer in those 10 years. That is not a part of your dynasty. 4 rings in a 6-year span, that's a dynasty. 3 in a row, that's never been done. That's the most impressive thing. Either way, going on a rant right before we end this, but again, thank you all. Thank you for this season. And as always, if you have liked this, please like, share, retweet, subscribe, tell all your friends, and all that fun stuff. And until next time, peace.